Hey everybody. All right, so today we're talking about resumes. I'm going to share my screen. You have something to look at. All right, I'm not going to go through every item in this page and walk through every how to construct a resume. If you have never, or if you're unsure what you're looking at here or how to make one generally, you can always hold office hours with me. There are also most colleges have some kind of like job center where they will help you and walk you through this. There is one in Denny Hall on the first floor. Um, but what I will do in this video is kind of talk through general strategies for resumes. And the first one I want to maybe address is that I think it's a little bit of a misconception that people have a resume or one resume. That is wrong. And I think it's because we talk about resumes, some of the language like let me see your resume as though you only have one. A resume, as I define it, is a response to a job posting, which means that you will have as many resumes as you have jobs that you apply to. So you'll have a ton of resumes. You could apply to 40 jobs. That means you'll have 40 resumes. Now, how does this work behind the scenes? If you're organized, this is what I recommend. You will have a document that is sort of a what I call like an everything resume. Excuse me. And this document is just, it could be very long. It could be many, many pages. Maybe at the start, it won't be very long for you. But it'll basically it'll look kind of like a resume, but it'll be just a long list of everything you've ever done, maybe with some bullets. And it'll serve as a sort of source of memory, but also as you'll have some language that you use in various resumes that you'll keep there. And it'll be your starting point. And then from there, there will be sort of branches. Most people have two or three industries that or sub-industries that they might potentially be seeking jobs in. So, for example, let's say you're an English major, which I don't know if there many of you are, but maybe English majors maybe are applying to a technical writing job. They may have a technical writing resume, but then they may have a second resume for a job that is in user experience, which is pretty related to technical writing, but it is different, has different skills and backgrounds. So you'll have there's a hierarchy. You have your everything resume, you'll have your one sub industry resume, another sub industry resume, and then when you apply to a job and say user experience, you go and you pick up your user experience document and you edit it to match the the job posting, and that's how you end up with your single one page resume. So um, let's let's go ahead and look at maybe this document just in big picture terms. So when you get to that job posting, you are expected to create a unique resume for it. Now, unique could mean you just change a few words, or it could mean it's truly unique, like you really thought it through more or less from scratch, pulling from things from your various documents. And there are basically two approaches or two things to think about, I think I want to encourage you guys and emphasize in this video. So one is real estate and the other is the actual bullets themselves. So when I say real estate, I mean that it's a one-page resume, but not everything on this page is equal. The stuff at the top is way more important than anything. The lower you go on the page, the less likely it is to be read, or it'll be read conditionally, like only if the person likes the first item, they'll continue reading it. I will say if people read your resume, which we'll talk about, maybe they won't, maybe they will. They will read it very quickly. I mean, 10 seconds. So the first thing that they see, well, I guess this is most students will have education first, and then as you graduate and get like a real job, your education will be at the bottom. So the education will be first. But the first item on experience is the most important one. The second item is the second most important. Everything else is like of tertiary and minor importance. So, and then within those items, the first bullet and even the first few words are the most important in each bullet. So for example, Um, I think I don't know. This sounds obvious to me, but so many people do this. If you were applying for a job in, let's say, graphic design, and you do have experience in graphic design, but for whatever reason, maybe because you're trying to follow the reverse chronological order, where you have the most recent thing first and less recent things, going back in time. Your graphic design experience was a year ago, and you've done things since, and so the graphic design comes here. That would be a huge mistake. You need to tell a very loud and consistent story that you are a graphic designer starting from the very first item. So what I recommend people do is they have a relevant experience section and an other experience section. And I recommend that you use these sections to kind of like break up the reverse chronological order and to put your most impactful and crucial to the story experience first. And then you can drop down the less important things, even if they're more recent, down to here. Okay. So that's what I recommend doing. Always emphasize a consistent and loud story using the most important real estate on your resume. And then second, these bullets. So it's actually quite hard to write a good bullet. And what is a good bullet? Well, it completely depends on the job posting. So this is whoever this is a fake resume, but their first bullet or their first item, which is the most important bullet, the most important experience. They say they prepared and maintain accurate and current records of club activities and financial information. All right. This is a good bullet if you are applying to a secretarial job that involves record keeping. It is a bad bullet for pretty much everything else. It is a bad bullet for any kind of job involving financial information because the financial information comes last in the bullet, so it's buried. It is a bad bullet for basically any other job. Uh, so I would, this is the kind of thing you want to get sensitive to when you read these resumes is, um, let's say let's say you were applying to a job, I don't know, in fashion and arts. I don't know if I've ever met an OSU student do that. That'd be pretty cool if I did. I have met other students in different universities in fashion and arts, but whatever. Um, you need to talk about fashion and arts in your first bullet. Like, I mean, assuming that the job posting asks for it, it should be front and center. All that language should be there. And so what do you say? Your main job is to represent what you did and why you did it, using insider language. So you need to sound like you are a member of the profession. Actually, I'm gonna take a different. Let's say you were applying to a scientific research lab. Well, a bad bullet would be applied. I worked in a lab, a research lab setting. That would be a horrible bullet. It's true, but it's a bad bullet because it's too vague and it doesn't make you sound like you know anything. A good bullet would be something like conducted in vitro research on the specific gene prototype in order to determine efficacy for this vaccine. I'm not a scientist, but you can see me trying to use scientific language. You really want to show that you are a scientist and that you are already on the inside of that scene and that you talk like one and that and then you're using language that is specific enough to communicate that. The other thing I'll say that is a great secret weapon when you're writing these bullets is the in order to clause. So it doesn't have to be in order to, but this to. I did a thing to in order to achieve that for this goal in mind. I did this working toward this goal. Why is this secretly a good tool? Because it allows you to add more complexity to the bullet while showing more insider language and also showing that you're aware of the general purpose and the goal, like the broader picture behind your activity. Not that you did something, but you had a goal in mind. And so anytime you're working on your bullets and you're like, this doesn't feel great, find that in order to clause and throw it in there and see what happens. Okay. Okay, so I think that's all I'll say about this. Again, if you want to talk about like how this is document, like what are all these things and you don't know like why they're in the order they are, or like how to make a bullet, can you meet with me? One thing I will say is let's talk about the design generally. So you can see there's this design here. You can see, it's got these lines, it has these sort of sections, it has bolds, it has bullets, it has italics. These are all the tools that we use to give structure to a document and to give hierarchy. So you want to be using those. And it's very different than this resume. Okay. I'm not going to say that either resume is bad, but I will caution you. So this is a resume that you will often get out of a template, or if you're asking someone to help you make it, or a program to help you make it, you'll get something like this. Traditionally, this is a very dangerous resume to use. I would strongly caution you against it. I don't know why Microsoft Word keeps spitting these out because what happens when you apply to a job, assuming it's not a small company, if it's a even a medium small company or larger, it will be read by an ATS program. It's an automated tracking software program, and what the program will do is it'll read all the everything that's here, and it'll match it to the job posting, looking for keywords from the job posting to see if they're represented on the resume, and then it'll give you your resume a score based off how well it matches the job posting using, again, this quantitative method. And if your resume is below a certain score, then the program will say that this is not a good match and it'll never be read by a human. And pretty much, I mean, I don't want to make this claim too boldly, but I would strongly suspect that most people in our class will apply to many jobs and have their resume never be read by a human because it was rejected by the software program. Now, why is that a problem? Well, when you have a resume like this, what's going on behind the scenes in terms of formatting is there are often these like tables and columns and various like tools that the document has to structure the information, um, or the template. And these columns and tables can really mess up and trip up the automated software, the applicant tracking software. So a common mistake, like it'll say like, oh, here's an art director job. And then even though to a human eye, this is very obviously connected to the art director job, there'll be some table formatting here that trips it up and it won't be able to see that this is connected to that. And it'll just misread the resume and you'll get a very low score. And a human will never read it. So I would strongly recommend that you keep minimal formatting to your resume. Keep it to, bullets, spaces, um, and italics and bolds. Don't use columns, don't use tables, don't use templates. That is a major mistake. It's a little unclear these days. There's a lot of like new companies that are, selling new AI-driven models to various other companies that promise to like do better at this at this challenge. Excuse me, or to and exactly how they read resumes is it may be a little different and sort of it's a little divergent, so it's a little unclear. But I would say in general you want to stick to a more minimally formatted document. This sort of designed resume would be really good in a situation where you were going to hand someone your resume, like on a job fair. This might be a little more, it has a little more pop, a little more color, a little more visual appeal. But I think this is the standard. Something like this is much more standard. You want to keep it um, minimally formatted. Okay. Oh, I also, you can look at this. I have made this resume years ago. And you can see uh, it's just an example that I made. I don't know if it's any good anymore, but okay. So that's that. If you have any questions about resumes or you want me to help you workshop yours, I'd be totally fine and happy to do that. Just send me an email, set up an appointment, and we'll talk through it. And that's it.